and welcome to Labyrinth the Bazaar, a podcast where we discuss, review, and analyze speculative fiction, such as horror, apocalyptic, dark fantasy, and other subgenres. My name is Elia, and my pronouns are they, them.
I'm Andrea, and my pronouns are she, her.
And in this episode, we'll be discussing one of my favorite movies, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition. Since BVS is a dense movie, we'll mostly focus on Batman, Superman, and Lex Luthor, and how they influence each other throughout the movie. This discussion is for BVS, the Ultimate Edition, which is significantly different from the theatrical release. Not only is it an additional 30 minutes, but the order and editing of the theatrical is entirely altered due to Warner Brothers Studio meddling. The Ultimate Edition is reflective of what the crew wanted BVS to be. There is a very long Screen Rant article that details every difference between the two versions of the movie. If you are interested, it's in the show notes, and even if you're not going to read it, I suggest looking at the length of it just to visualize how different the two of them are.
So in Batman vs. Superman, it's been nearly 2 years since Superman's battle with Zod devastated the city of Metropolis. The loss of life and collateral damage left many feeling angry and helpless, including crime-fighting millionaire Bruce Wayne. Convinced that Superman is now a threat to humanity, Batman embarks on a personal vendetta to end his reign on Earth, while the conniving Lex Luthor launches his own crusade against the Man of Steel.
Basically, two rich people plot to kill an immigrant because his existence has disrupted the status quo, and not knowing where you fit in the world is terrifying, especially for people with money and power. Yeah, fuck rich people.
Fuck rich people. Eat the rich. Eat the rich.
Yeah, I also wanted to mention that during the BVS promotional period, they released an interview with Lex Luthor. And it was like, it's really cool because it's pretending like that Lex is a real person. And it even shows like a chart, like rich people's income. Lex Luthor is like a billionaire, and then Bruce Wayne is at the bottom as a millionaire.
Oh my god.
And there's a huge difference between, there's a difference between million and a billion, but you
Poor
know,
Bruce.
I don't think either of them should exist. But just for context and just because it's cool, the income difference between the two of them. So some trigger warnings. There is canon typical blood and gore. A lot of bones breaking on screen as well. There's some cutting, flashing lights, and like a sacrificial suicide. There's also a character that exhibits internal ableism and says like one or two ableist lines. Okay, Rhea, so tell me your history with this movie.
Okay, hear me out. So, it took me a long time to watch this movie. After Man of Steel, I didn't like the concept of Batman and Superman fighting because in my head I was like, I don't like it when two heroes fight each other. And I didn't want to watch it. So, when I did watch it, it was when Justice League was coming out. And the news with all the Joss Whedon Justice League and stuff like that was already getting me angry. So, when I watched this movie, I didn't enjoy it at all. And I didn't like it. I honestly didn't like it the first time I watched it. I also hated it because it would make me cry every time Superman was on the screen because I love Superman and everything he goes through in this movie makes me emotional. So it was both a factor that I didn't like the movie. I also didn't like crying constantly. So I just didn't like the movie until a month ago when I watched the Ultimate version and I was like, oh, fuck!
Yeah, I literally had a meltdown because I assumed that you had watched the Ultimate Edition, and it's like this entire time has been a lie.
Yeah, I never expressed to you that I liked it, so.
Yeah, I just assumed. And so in reality, I've just been raving about this movie, and you have been secretly in the shadows like, what the fuck are they talking about?
I mean, I can't just go to you and be like, well, you know that movie you love and you're like spend so much money on? I hate it. But also you do the same thing. I don't remember which book it was, but I like a book a lot and you read it secretly and you didn't tell me you didn't like it.
Okay, but to be fair, it was a romance novel.
What?
Yeah.
Which one?
And McClellan.
Huh?
Anne Lee McClellan? I don't remember her name. Latina writer?
Oh, Wild Beauty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love that book.
Yeah, and no. Yeah. No.
I like how you said their name.
I don't, what is it?
I think it's Anna Marie McLemore.
Okay, yeah. I don't even remember the name. So I was kind of just like, what the fuck is this?
But yeah. I don't know if you ever noticed, but every time we would talk about DC, I would never talk about Batman versus Superman, only Man of Steel. And there's a reason for that.
I just assumed that was your favorite out of all the movies that were released. You've been lying to me to my face.
I did not lie.
Time.
I never once said a lie to you. You assumed something and I didn't correct you.
Yeah, you didn't correct me.
But also you shouldn't assume things.
Oh my god. The literal meltdown that I had when I found out that you haven't watched the Ultimate Edition.
I didn't even know this version existed.
Oh my god. When you brought up that you didn't like the idea of Batman and Superman fighting, and like while that is like a majority of what the trailer is, did you know that Zack Snyder didn't choose that title? That was a studio title that they wanted.
Of course.
Yeah.
Fucking course. Because that's the worst name.
It is the worst name. It's actually Batman v Superman. And during an interview during the ZSJL release, Zach and Chris Terrio, the writer, were talking about how the studio had chosen that movie and how pretentious it sounded because it sounds like a federal court case. And I was like, yeah, it's so bad.
It does sound like that.
It's so bad.
Did they ever say what they wanted it to be called?
No, they didn't. They were like spitballing and saying they were spitballing and saying like son of sun, night of night,
son of sun,
son of like the sun in the sky, and then night of night, and then like people like ran with that and were saying how it was a bad movie title, and I was just like, they were just like thinking off the top of their head in that interview. They were not. It was literally like a Zoom call. Like, please, y'all.
Oh my god, I just realized something.
What?
They have the sun and moon dynamic.
Yeah, they do.
I did never realize
Why
that.
do you think I like them together so much? They're literally day versus night.
I know.
In literally so many of
so
their
precious.
comics. Listen. In so many of their comics together, they would always, when they talk about how different they are, they would talk about their family dynamics and how different it was. Because, you know, Batman grew up with his parents being murdered. Superman lost his birth parents and was raised in a adoptive, loving family. And then they're always, Batman works at night, Superman always in broad daylight, and he is like the figure of hope, and Batman is the figure of fear. And it's just like there's so much contrast between the two of them. I don't understand how people don't think they are perfect together. Like they're just great. They're just great. I love them.
Wow.
I can go on so much. But yeah, literally moon and sun dynamic. Why is this how is this like the first time that you noticed this? It's literally like the lines in this movie.
Because I don't think a lot. Okay, I know you're gonna get mad at this, but I don't think a lot about Batman. I don't think. He doesn't have any space in my brain. He doesn't occupy any space truly in my brain. So when I think about Batman, it's usually in conversation with you. So I don't, it's not a lot that I think about their dynamics, okay? So don't blame me.
Okay. But like in the movie, I mean, Lex says day versus night. I don't know how. Even
that
in the
my head.
Even at the charity party, they play Night and Day in the background. It's a song, which is also a song played in BioShock, which is why I know that song and love it.
Oh my god.
But yeah, there's a lot.
You know what?
There's a lot of hints in this movie that they are opposites.
This is why I have you to point out obvious things that I missed.
My history with this movie, I watched it when it released, probably the day of the release. I watched it in theaters, and I hated it. And then like a year later or whatever, I had the DVD of the Ultimate Edition, and I heard that it was better than the theatrical, so I tried it out, and I still hated it. And it's like, honestly, looking back now, I'm not sure why I disliked it, because my introduction, like my proper introduction to comics and comic book movies, was Watchmen, and that is a, you know, heavily political movie, and it's the same tone as BVS. And I don't know how I was so in love and passionate about Watchmen and didn't feel the same about this movie. Like, what was different, really? I probably just wanted
Avengers.
Yeah, I probably just wanted it to be like Avengers. But I don't know. I should have been able to pick up on like what they were trying to do at least. Because, like, if I can appreciate
but
Watchmen.
You didn't.
Yeah, but I didn't, which is bad. And I mean, also the trailers were just, like, portraying a mindless fighting movie.
Yeah, that's the reason why it took me so long, because I didn't want that.
Yeah, and then like when you watch the movie, it's not that. So it's like, it's just so many mixed signals. And it, you know, trailers aren't, like, directors don't have creative control over that.
Yeah.
So I know it's not their fault, but yeah, it was a mess for me trying to watch this movie back then. And then, like, some years ago, I watched it again, and I fell in love with it. And it's one of my favorite movies now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at how the tables have turned.
Look how the tables have turned. You exposed yourself as a poser. Watching this literally a month ago, when I thought you would watch it before.
Okay, you need to stop.
I'm not gonna let this go, Rhea.
Let me explain something. I never once said that I like this movie. I never once said that anything that you're saying I'm a poser for. I said I love Man of Steel. Every single time I talk about it, I always say I love Superman. But you would be like,
you would say that that you liked DC movies, and so that
I like DC movies.
Yeah, so that would, you know, include BVS.
Do you think that includes Suicide Squad?
No.
Okay. If I say like DC movies and I mention like Man of Steel only, is that the only movie I talk about? Then maybe just start from there. Just start from there and we could move on. But I'm not a poser. I am not.
Okay.
Says you who hated both movies at the beginning and it took you years to get over it.
Did.
So who's the real poser now?
It's me. Look, listen, I just... Nostalgia.
This episode is going to be called Batman vs. Superman, Elia's a poser.
Oh my god. I mean, we haven't finalized the episode title, so technically it could be that.
Because that's the episode title.
Segues are so hard. Hey, you're an English major. Can you segue
I'm
us
not a
into
fucking English
the
major.
next segment?
I don't know how many times I had to tell you this. I'm not an English major.
I mean, it's the same thing.
No, it's not. Don't make me get into this again.
What is it again?
Different. Comparative literature.
I mean, yeah, but it's like English.
It's not English. I literally study languages in literatures in other languages that's not English. That's the whole point. It's not English.
No. The department of English.
No, it's a different department. It's the Department of Comparative World Literature.
No, listen. So, you know how in elementary, in grade school, there are subjects, general subjects. So there's science, math, English. Mm-hmm. You are English.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
I'm not. How can it be English?
I'm so confused. How does this work?
I am not in elementary school, first of all. I'm in a university where things are not described as easily as science, math, English, history. There's different specifications. And comparative world literature does not fall under English because it could also be under Spanish or French or any other fucking language.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Like, for people who want to get a PhD in comparative literature, it's usually required that you already know and are able to read in 3 different languages other than English.
Interesting.
Because you're not supposed to do English.
Welcome to Labyrinth of Bizarre, episode whatever, where we talk about higher education.
We can have an episode on that. I'm fine.
Anyways,
it's your fault if you like to rile me up with that. Okay, going back, let's start with Bruce Wayne.
so Bruce is introduced in the beginning of this movie as Bruce Wayne and then later as Batman. What did you think about, like, your first impression of... how do I say this in a sentence?
Yeah, it's obvious you're not an English major.
Yeah. Oh my god.
So what are we thinking about our first look at Bruce Wayne, not Batman?
Yeah, the way they introduce Bruce Wayne and Batman to the audience. What did you think of that?
I love this introduction. I really think it's neat, especially with the connections in Man of Steel, how they didn't only focus on Superman, they also focused on the employees of the Daily Planet and how it affected them. So introducing Bruce Wayne as a person and not a hero or a symbol first, we get to see how this traumatic event that affected a lot of people he feels in charge for, which are his employees. Like, we could see how it could have traumatized a person, how it traumatized Bruce Wayne and not Batman. And in this scene, it kind of gave me, like, you were thinking about Watchmen earlier, and I also felt that with Looking Glass, and how we see two characters who were just human beings who received a traumatic global event. They received global trauma, and we get to see an angle that's usually not in superhero movies, and we just see how these two characters progress from that, what they do. And what's interesting about Bruce Wayne is that he actually has money to do something about it, and so it's a really cool world building introduction where we see traumatic event affecting human Bruce Wayne and how that affects the creation of Batman.
Mm-hmm. I also really love that this is how they chose to introduce Bruce Wayne. I don't recall how we are introduced to him in the Nolan trilogy, but they could have, I feel like people want him to be introduced to us with him acting out his Bruce Wayne persona. But instead, they showed us how he exhibits his true self when he is Bruce Wayne. And and I just really like that. And as you said, just seeing another perspective during that crisis, because there is like there's like people suffering during this crisis. It's not just like a superhero fighting a villain. There's actual consequences to what happened.
Yeah.
And then I also really liked seeing Bruce running into the smoke. I think that was a really chilling shot. You know the one I'm talking about? It's so when the Wayne Tower falls.
Oh,
yeah, when
yes,
Superman,
yes.
or actually it's the part where Zod does his forget what the word is called, but basically the lasers coming out of his eyes. Heat vision, that's the word. When Zod starts having heat vision for the first time, and it's uncontrollable because he does not know how to handle it, and he's just like destroying a building. We see in this movie that is actually Wayne Industries, and that building crashes, and as it crashes, all the dust and smoke from a building falling like rises, and as everyone's running away from a building falling, Bruce runs into it, and like he's just running into a smoke, and it just looks really fucking cool.
I really like this introduction of Bruce Wayne. I feel like I don't remember the Nolan trilogy either, but I feel like a lot of people like to focus on Bruce Wayne, the moment his parents died, and like the creation of how his bat trauma and shit like that. So to see Bruce Wayne acting like a hero, but as Bruce Wayne and not as Batman, is really interesting.
There's a part where Bruce sees a child and he's comforting the child. And I think it's really interesting because during a very short dialogue with her, he realizes that this child has just become an orphan. And I think that really shows how personal this crisis was for him, and like fuels his hatred for Superman.
Yeah.
Oh my god, speaking of dynamics, they're opposites, and then in this universe, he wants to kill Superman, and then he accepts Superman, and then Superman dies, and then his purpose is to redeem himself to Superman.
He just wants, oh my god, the
yeah.
the energy in the studio
is great. It's wonderful. The cops investigate this building, and I love how like we are slowly introduced to Batman. So Batman is a creature of the night. People don't know if he's real. They don't know if he's human. He is an urban legend. Meant to scare criminals.
He's a cryptid.
Yeah, he's a cryptid. And the way this scene is shot is like a horror movie. When the cops enter the house and see the Batarang, when the cops enter the house, they see the Batarang like not like thrown into the wall, and it's like chilling. And then they find these sex trafficked victims who don't want to leave because there's something terrifying. And then you hear like these screaming off screen, and it just like really increases the tension, and it's shot it like the way it's presented, I feel like really fits Batman as a creature of the night. And I really love this introduction to him.
I think the scene is really interesting because it also kind of establishes who is on Batman's side. Because when the cops arrive, the victims of the sex trafficking ring are afraid of Batman. They're like, they'd rather stay locked in the cage than be somewhere where Batman is. Because he's just scary, of course. They just see like a giant bat with weapons and guns. But we also see how the perspective the police have of Batman, which I think is really interesting. How they support him, like his vigilante status. And it's confusing at first, but then I remember Watchmen, and then it all makes sense. You know? Am I making sense?
No.
No? Okay.
I don't think that the cops side with him.
But they do, though.
I mean, I think they are afraid of him, and that they think what he's doing is wrong, or like I don't know the word for it, but when they see that Batman is branding people, they're obviously disgusted by that.
But then when there's a scene where Clark goes to Gotham and he's talking to the police department, and they basically tell him to ignore Batman, which I took as just let him be, like he's helping us. And then there's also the part where they have a bat signal, of course.
Yeah, that's true.
As the police. So it's, even though they might be disgusted by him, they see him as a tool that could work to their benefit, I think.
I think it also reflects what the movie's trying to do anyway, how, I mean, we'll talk about it a bit later, but it's basically talking about how, like, being an observer makes you complicit to a problem, because you are not taking action to stop it. Even though, you know, you are against it, if you are a bystander to a problem, then you are indirectly allowing it to continue.
Yeah.
I guess that is what the cops are.
That's true. Yeah. Bystanders that are complicit into Batman's little thing.
Yeah, because, I mean, like, I definitely don't think they are as supportive of Batman as people may think. You also see that in Zack Snyder's Justice League for a very brief moment. I think they are looking for any reason to villainize him and want to get rid of him. But going back to the branding, I, want to make it very clear that this is Bruce's first time branding someone, which is explicitly stated when Alfred asks Bruce about having new rules. And a lot of people missed that part and misinterpret it as Batman being a really extreme superhero, and that's not correct to who Batman is, but it's like that's like the point of the movie. Like,
yeah, that this is a Batman that's not developed yet.
Yeah. A lot of people don't like this iteration of Batman because the way he is written, we are not supposed to side with Batman in this movie, because he represents us, like the bad us. And that makes people uncomfortable. He represents us in the way that people are prejudiced against others based on assumptions. Batman's hate for Superman stems from not knowing. This is a man who, ever since his parents' death, he has spent his life preparing for every possibility for danger and eradicating every threat. There is so much unknown about Kryptonians and Superman, and the mere possibility that a being with that much power could one day do a bad thing is reason enough for Batman to remove him as a threat. And like that is a perspective that a lot of people in our society have today, towards people of color and other marginalized groups.
Yeah.
And people seeing Batman as someone like that, because he is being used as a narrative tool to point out, like, hey, this behavior is not okay. People don't like that. They don't like that he's being used to point out flaws in our society.
Well, yeah. I feel like I also felt that way at the beginning because I didn't want to watch Batman versus Superman at all. I was like, I don't want them to fight. Just be friends.
Yeah.
But it makes sense in the society in Zack Snyder movies and the way he has chosen to represent Superman as a immigrant type. Of course, he has to use millionaire Batman to portray this. There's no other person who would do it as well as Batman and show this development that we see at the end and in Justice League. Yeah,
they had a whole arc going. Oh my god, and his character development from like the end of BVS to Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's so great. You know, I don't want to like jump ahead because we'll obviously talk about that in the next episode, but character development. And then on the other side of that, how has the world reacted and adjusted to Superman after 2 years?
So this is like immediately contrasting Batman scene, who is much on a smaller scale level. We see Superman working on a larger scale, which I think is so interesting that people have a problem with Superman because he's working on a larger scale with the world and different countries, and American politicians immediately see this as a negative because they have coded Superman as American and not human, which is interesting to me. And helping other countries is a cause for concern for them. They're immediately seeing Superman as a threat now. Or not immediately, but like they're starting to be wary of him.
Outside of the movie, the scene is written as a political statement about the United States as well. Which is why it consciously or subconsciously didn't sit well with a lot of Americans when they first watched this movie. Just to point out some things, Superman flies in like a drone and leaves without any repercussions. Lois Lane, a person who had good intentions, was utilized by the US government and Lex Luthor to harm the Nairobian people. The government team on the horses were clearly against the drone attack, but chose to do nothing when it really came to it. Again, pointing out how bystanders have an impact on bad shit happening. It is a single scene that criticizes how a lot of different perspectives have an impact on war and people. Chris Terrio, the writer for BVS, talks about this scene in length, and I highly encourage you to check out the show notes for the link after listening to this episode. Terrio also talks about Joss Whedon and Warner Brothers, which is like the main part of the interview, but it's really interesting to hear about what his intentions were with a lot of the politics in this movie. Another reaction from society to Superman is the government issuing a federal court case, particularly with Kahina Ziri, the witness for the court case, whose parents were in the attack in Nairobi.
You know what frustrates me about this? That her parents are actually okay, and that just means that the government didn't put the effort to even do like any research on this. And they were looking for a chance to get Superman. Yeah. That's what they were doing. They were waiting for a chance, and they took it, the first one they found.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
It gets me so angry. And I'm like, already, like, my eyes are stinging and I'm so mad for him. I was like, how dare you?
I also think that if that were to be explored, that Lex Luthor would have fabricated any sort of evidence on that because he basically threatened her to do this. But yeah, I also think that even if Lex didn't do that, that is something that the government would do because, I mean, fuck it, you know? They get to villainize an immigrant. Why wouldn't they take it, I guess? Ziri is hands down one of the best side characters in a film ever. I think you can agree. Her lines, the significance of her role in the story, in spite of the low amount of screen time that she has, I just think it's reflective of great time management and making sure that everything she says is actually relevant and contributes to the story.
See, that's called good writing and good directing. Because even if a character has a small role, they could still be super impactful. They don't just have to be there.
Yes. If you're going to put a character, you have to utilize them in your story. It doesn't make sense to just have, like, filler people.
Yes!
Another point is the bathtub scene between Clark and Lois. Clark talks about how he doesn't care what other people are saying because he wanted to protect someone he loves. And then Lois provides a different perspective by telling him, I'm saying thank you for saving my life. I'm saying there's a cost. Clark's perspective is one that a lot of hero movies have, right? They don't consider the consequences of their actions. We, the audience, like to project ourselves onto heroes in fiction. We want things to be simple. We want to be able to escape our lives through them. We don't want to think about how in reality, if we had superpowers, money, the ability to do what he does, that there would actually be consequences. And in our reality, there are people with power and money who only think of themselves and don't think about the impact of their actions, and those are rich people. I think it's really interesting that they used Lois as like a narrative tool to be like, hey, we know this is what the audience is thinking. The audience is probably on the same perspective as Clark, but here's why it's a flawed perspective to have.
Yeah. I love how they use Lois too. I think she's really good, and how she, even though obviously Superman is basically human, he's lived as a human his entire life, she still serves as a reminder for him, like, even though you're one of us, you're still gonna face things differently.
Last thing I want to say about this scene, Lois says, I just don't know if it's possible for me to love you and be you, which is heavy foreshadowing for the next movie and the ones that are meant to follow it. I don't want to spoil it right now, but I'm sure if you are able to understand foreshadowing, you'll probably understand what was supposed to happen. The last character introduction we need to talk about is Lex fucking Luthor, who is the best villain in the DCEU and the best villain in any comic book movie for me. Yes. Actually, just like a lot of movies in general.
Yes.
Genuinely.
So good. So smart. And I don't like him, but I think he's a great antagonist. Like, wow.
It's really interesting because everything about Zack Snyder's DC films is that the characters are modern iterations to reflect our world. Which is why a lot of people don't like that, because they want a lot of what was already established like decades before, for nostalgia or just to, quote unquote, follow the source material or whatever. And like the billionaires of our world, such as Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg, they're like all hip and down to earth and relatable to the rest of us. At the time, I didn't like this iteration because it predated the rise of familiarity that we have with these kind of billionaires now. I mean, like, a lot of people are saying that, Zack Snyder, a lot of his DC movies, or his movies in general, always predict what's going to happen in our society, and that's how people felt about this Lex Luthor, because he basically predated a lot of these popular
Cool
billionaires.
billionaires.
Yeah, who are
Yeah.
like super cool and into the same stuff as the rest of us. And so this Lex felt really foreign and inaccurate as a billionaire, and just like a mockery of what a villain is supposed to be.
Yeah, because usually when billionaires are portrayed in the time when this movie was released, it was like old, white, decrepit man. And seeing a young billionaire who has like a quirky personality, who seems a little awkward, it just feels weird because you wouldn't expect that of a billionaire at the time. But now we know differently.
Yeah, now we know that billionaires are out here with fucking anime icons, and I think they're like the rest of us because of it.
We're just like you. We also watch anime.
No.
But I could go into space if I want and like damage the world because it costs so much energy and gasoline. But like, you know what? I went into space.
And I like to exploit, people of color in other countries.
Yeah, just so I could get
for
lithium.
cheap labor.
But it doesn't matter because they're brown.
Yeah. So billionaires.
Fuck them.
Yeah, fuck billionaires. And now I see that this iteration of a billionaire is accurate and not bad at all.
What's the name of the actor for Lex Luthor again?
Oh my god, it was literally on the tip of my tongue, and then I just forgot.
Jesse
Eisenberg.
Jesse Eisenberg, yes. Okay. So I also think that choosing him as a millionaire is so funny because he's usually like in other movies he's like the rundown white boy who's poor, but he wins the girl at the end. So it was weird seeing him
I see, yeah.
in like a billionaire place. So I guess I understand what people back then when they saw the movie were confused about. Because he's such a good Lex Luthor. He's great. Yeah. He's great. I'm proud of him.
Yeah, I definitely think that earlier Jesse was typecasted for a specific role. And I think it's really interesting because a lot of people were like, oh, after The Social Network, he had like a path ahead of him, but then he took the role for BVS and now he doesn't have that path anymore. And I'm like, but have you seen the role? He, like the lines that he's saying, I mean, it's like, they're hard lines to act, and it's
so good.
He did a really wonderful job. And also, fun little behind the scenes fact, Lex's theme is like, it's like forgive me because I don't know musical terms, but his theme is using the same chords as the Superman theme. It's like slowed down, or it's the reverse of the chords. I don't remember, but it's the exact same chords.
Interesting.
It is interesting. And his theme is the best. One of the best.
It is really good. Are you gonna use it for the trailer?
I used Batman's theme. It's the one in the very beginning where his parents are dying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's his theme. But did you know that? Oh no, I'll bring it up in
Probably
the next
not.
episode. Never mind.
No, say it.
Batman has a different theme in Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Because of his character development.
Because of his character development, yeah.
Aww. Good for you.
Because this theme in BVS is a Batman who has lost hope in humanity. He's like the really bad phase in his life. He lost hope
and then he brought hope back.
Yeah, and then after Superman, he regained hope and belief that the world could be a better place. And so he can't have the same theme that is from a phase in his life where he's really depressed, basically. But yeah, he has a new theme. It's great. And I'll probably bring it up again in the next episode. So we both really like Lex as a villain. Yeah. What did you think about his motivations as an antagonist? Because I know that with like Man of Steel, we thought that Zod's motivations as a villain were kind of weak. So how did we feel about Lex.
I thought Lex's motivations were much better than Zod's. Just because Zod's are like on the ground.
Yeah,
anything. Huh?
Colonization. Yeah. Like
yeah, it's
like
okay,
that.
but like I think it fits Lex because he is a billionaire. The way he thinks is obviously so twisted and so dumb to me as a poor human. So it's like his desire to have what Superman has and obtain godhood and is just another challenge for him as a rich person, like something he wants, something he could achieve by twisting other people, by using Superman and pitting him against Batman. Is just everything was pawns for him to achieve power. So I think it's good. I think if it's a billionaire perfectly.
That's an interesting take on it. My perspective of it was the existence of aliens disrupts the status quo, and he, as a billionaire, is no longer at the top of the food chain, so he wants power over Superman to regain his superiority.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
I think both of us are right, but that's interesting take on it. Yeah.
Look at us.
Yeah, but I also agree. Like, what I love about him is that his motives as a villain aren't far-fetched at all. You know,
No,
like,
they're not.
that's a lot more applicable to people in our world today because there's a lot of rich people who feel the same way as Lex. Because, you know, for supervillains, it's mostly colonization, world domination. And, you know, that's a terrible thing that people actually do. But Lex, his motives are the same as, you know, wealthy white supremacists in our world who don't really need to have some sort of extravagant background or power in order to do what he does.
There's reaches a point in money that people reach that they don't need like a strong motivation, like, oh, the survival of my people or anything like that. They just literally can be like, I want that. It's in my right to have that because I think I'm better than everybody. And that's it. And it makes sense tragically for them if they don't want to be less than anybody else.
What I also like about Lex is, because, you know, Bruce is also a rich person. So similar to Batman, Lex sees Superman as a threat. But their motivations are slightly different. It's not slightly, they're entirely different. Batman is concerned about the lives of people, but Lex is just concerned about he and his power fits in a world where superpowered aliens exist. And so I think it's really interesting to see how the two of them contrast each other and how their characters develop by the end of the movie.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, Lex is also a rich orphan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's another situation where we see how two people can develop differently, even though they both have the means to have possibly done good. Lex could have probably been like a more powerful Batman situation, but instead he went with the I want to be God route.
Yeah, he has a really bad God complex.
Yeah.
But it means that he has really great lines.
Oh, and you could also see the type of people there are different because in the beginning, Bruce is concerned for his employees. And there's one point in the film where Luthor is like interacting with one of his, probably like an assistant and an employee, and he doesn't care about the fact that he sent her into her death at the bomb
Oh
scene.
my god, that makes me so mad.
Yeah.
That made me so mad.
So he sees people as dispensable, so.
Yeah. There's a line that Lex says, and it's, oh my god, dude, just Lex Luthor in this movie, he has so many great quotes. Like, I can't believe Chris Terrio, he deserves an award for this script. But when he says, do you know the oldest lie in America, Senator? It's that power can be innocent. And I'm like, oh my god. So good. But that's, you know, that's why he thinks Superman is a threat. Because he doesn't think that power can be innocent. And it's also him validating him being a bad person.
Yeah, basically. He's like, I am a bad person, but it's because I have power, not because
I'm a bad
I
person, and
choose
that
to be a
means
bad person.
I'm a bad person, and that means Superman is a bad person too. Because we
Yeah.
both have power, and I'm gonna out him to the rest of the world because I don't want him to be seen as a saint. One last thing, there's the conversation between Senator Finch when she blocks Lex's import license for the kryptonite. There is a line that Lex says, and without context, it kind of just seems like it was thrown out there, and it's really awkward to watch. He says the red capes are coming, and it's a reference to an event in U.S. history when the British were invading during the war, and a man rode on horseback through the town shouting, "The redcoats are coming." Do you remember that?
Paul Revere.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, Paul Revere.
You remember the name?
How do you not? We learned about this like every year in elementary school.
Okay, I mean, yeah, so did I, but I don't remember any names.
Okay.
Wow.
I guess I'm just smart, you know? I'm just kidding.
Okay, English history major. Anyways, going back. And with that line, it's Lex comparing Superman to the Redcoats, and Lex is the one alerting the world of incoming doom. Yeah, and I just wanted to... There's a couple of, like, U.S. history references that, like, even if you grew up learning U.S. history, you might not even catch it, you know? So I just want to point it out in the podcast.
Fucking Lex. I love him. I hate him.
He's so good at pitting Batman and Superman against each other. Was there, like, anything in particular that stood out to you or is, like, your favorite?
I know I said this, like, multiple times already. Like, I didn't want to watch the movie because they were pitted against each other, but it ended up being one of my favorite things now. Because there's hardly any media, really, where two figures that are considered, like, good, like, heroic, are pitted against each other. And I always had the mindset, like, that won't happen. Like, why would they fight if they both want good for society? But now I understand, like, everybody has a different perspective of what good is and everybody has different means of conducting good in society. So this was a fucking genius move on Lex's part. Like, pitting two people who want good, but haven't had the chance to, like, talk to each other or speak on their ideologies with each other and can only perceive each other, really, through what other people are saying and what the media is portraying of each other. So I was like, whoa.
Right?
That's good shit right there.
So this isn't directly because of Lex, but I liked how it influenced Clark. So Clark's first interaction with Ziri that we know of is after the conversation about consequences with Lois, and he watches an interview with Ziri where she asks how Superman determines which lives matter and which ones do not. And then Clark is introduced to Batman when he goes to Gotham and wants to write a piece about Batman. And then when he brings it up with Perry, he says, "When you assign a story, you're making a choice about who matters and who's worth it." To which Perry responds, "Good morning, Smallville. The American conscience died with Robert, Martin, and John." And this is like a progression of him listening to what Ziri said about the value of people's lives and pursuing a story on Batman because of it, whether it's because of his guilt and he wants to make up for the damage he directly/indirectly caused, or because he genuinely wants to. It's just like an interesting progression from that point to this point. I also wanted to bring up this quote because it's another reference to US history that I thought was really interesting. Perry says, "The American conscience died with Robert, Martin, and John." And so this is Robert Kennedy, John Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. So in The Dark Knight Rises, a very popular political comment from the 80s, it says the American conscience died with the Kennedys. And that has been pointed out by many fans over the years, but there is a blog post that really went into detail about it that I'm going to reference and will also include the link in the show notes. The blog post writer points out that there is a speech by President Jimmy Carter called The Crisis of Confidence, where he says, quote, "We were sure that ours was a nation of the ballot, not the bullet, until the murders of John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr." It's a really great brief analysis on the significance of Theriot changing the line to include Martin Luther King Jr. in BVS, considering the film focuses so much on xenophobia. And it also, like, The article also touches on the historical context of this phrase and how after the assassinations of these 3 political figures, Americans became distrustful, lost hope, and just didn't care enough to show empathy for other people anymore, which I really think fits really, really well with the theme of BVS. And again, highly encourage you to read this article after the episode if you are interested.
I didn't really... I knew he was talking about Martin Luther King, but I didn't know who the other 2 were.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly,
the Kennedys.
I didn't know who the fuck any of them were. I was just like, okay, I'll look that up later.
It's 'cause those people are usually known with their entire name, not just, like, their first name.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, nobody calls John F. Kennedy just John.
Yeah,
Who the
and
fuck?
nobody says Martin from Martin Luther King Jr. You have to say MLK Jr.
Yeah.
But I think it's because the original line just said the Kennedys, I don't know, whatever. Maybe they just want it to be like a, you will only get it if you really understand U.S. history. So Lex Luthor and all of his manipulations, they affect Batman and Clark in different ways.
I was thinking of, like, the differences that it affects both of them. Because Bruce shows this very, like, primal human instinct of, like, fear first. And it's natural, for, obviously, like, as we said before, for a man who is rich and doesn't face these type of fears daily, to be confronted that's something that's beyond his riches and something that almost symbolizes, like, hope, godhood to other people. And of course, even though we both know and understand that Batman is different from Lex Luthor's type of rich, it still makes him want to keep it in check. That fear. And he immediately goes to the worst case scenario that can occur with Superman. And it goes back to the first Man of Steel movie where Superman is required to first put his trust in humans before any trust is given to him. And I think that's bullshit. But Clark, on the other hand, is constantly, even though he's doing so much for humanity and doing, like, saving people and picking, like, one of the most, quote-unquote, like, noble job positions, which is a journalist, he's constantly having his humanity questioned, which I think is heavier than what anybody else in the film is going through, honestly. I fucking cry whenever anybody's humanity is questioned just because they're born somewhere else. But he was, like, raised human. He has a family. He loves humanity. He literally... he does things to keep them all safe, but, like, he's questioned. And that's what Lex did. He affected Clark's humanity once again, making people question it.
I mean, like, Clark is hated and blamed regardless of what he does and doesn't do.
Yeah.
If he helps someone and something bad happens later, indirectly, it's his fault. If he helps someone and someone else suffers, it's his fault. If he doesn't help, it's his fault. And it's literally because of his immense power that people think he is responsible for everything, when in reality, he is just a person who wants to do good when he can. And, you know, it begs the question, where does that responsibility begin and end? And that's, like, a lot about this. It's just the question that this movie asks. It's a great emotional journey to see someone like Clark feel confused and lost because of who he is. Because he is Superman, who is assumed to be this godlike superhero who has no flaws and is really boring because he's a goody two-shoes.
I think it's so interesting that one of the ways John taught Superman humanity was about trust in humanity, and just, like, it's so funny that trust that makes him more human, no other fucking human apparently has. Nobody else has that type of humanity other than Lois, basically, and his family, because nobody fucking trusts him. Except for the non-white people I see in the film. I think it's funny how his humanity is based on trust, and everybody else's is based on, like, fear, and I hate it. And I hate that double standard, but it's a very important standard that they had to establish.
Yeah, and I also think it's really interesting how this affects Batman. What I like about Batman in this movie is that from the very beginning, they establish that this is a 40-plus-year-old man who still has nightmares about his parents' murder. Hence why, we get another introduction of Bruce's parents being killed in the first scene. I think that because the murders are a common fact about Batman, we tend to forget just how traumatizing it is and how that has literally affected and shaped Bruce's entire life. It's the reason he's Batman. It's the reason he's extremely distrustful. It's the reason he has contingency plans for contingency plans, and essentially is the reason why he wanted to kill Superman. I just think it's really interesting how Lex uses his emotional instability and his kind of unhealthy coping mechanisms to really push Batman over the edge to, just fuel that motivation to kill Superman. This is the best scene in the movie, and I think if you wanted to show someone a summary of what to expect from BVS, specifically the tone, you would show them this video. Because it's also not spoilery as well, which is really good. So the scene starts out with Superman saving a kid from a fire, right? And when he saves the kid from the fire, he looks not exactly smiling, but he looks content. And when he lands, he is regarded by the people as a god. And you see the discomfort and disappointment on his face as they sort of reach out to him as as a god. There's no other word, no other way to phrase that. And he very obviously does not enjoy being perceived as a god, but people keep using it as an example of a white savior moment, like Daenerys being carried by slaves. The tone of that, the context, and how Daenerys reacts to that scene, completely is different from what is being portrayed here.
You can't compare those two fucking scenes. What the fuck? I didn't even know people were comparing it. Okay. I have shit to say now.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I am not a Daenerys fan. In fact, I hate Daenerys, and if you ever talk to me, you know I don't like Daenerys. So this is really annoying me that anybody could compare Daenerys and Superman. Daenerys purposely went, I forgot, it's been a while since I know the terms of Game of Thrones, but she went to go find an army and people so she could take back her old kingdom. She only saved the people who were praising her because she wanted them to love her so they could work for her. It's not a empathy moment where she's like, yeah, she's saving the people. No, she wants them to work for her. That's all she does. She plans ahead. Superman is not trying to enlist a fucking army for himself. He's saving people because he wants to save humanity, because he loves humanity. The fact that people treat him like a god is not on him. As you said, he looks uncomfortable in that scene because that's not the point. That's not the reason he does all these things. Daenerys, on the other hand, has an ulterior motive in all her actions. She wants to become Queen of Westeros. She wants to rule with her fucking baby dragons that are adorable. How can people compare it?
Yeah, at the end of the day, Daenerys' motivations are to take back what is hers.
Bullshit.
Yeah, no, it's a completely different context. But I guess the image alone is enough to see it as a white savior moment. Honestly, there's so many things to say about what they say in this scene, but I feel like it's self-explanatory. It's obviously a really well-written scene where they have really deep political, philosophical conversations about how the existence of aliens shifts our perception of the world and how we value our lives, because humans think they're the best and at the top of the food chain, but now we're not anymore. So I feel I don't really need to have notes or talk about that, just because we can all collectively agree it's a great fucking scene.
It is. It's beautiful.
But one thing I just want to point out, and it melts my heart, that at the end of this scene, Clark's immediate reaction is to call his mother for comfort. I love that is just, I don't know. It says a lot to me about Clark, you know?
When I think of Superman, I think of I don't remember what the artist's name is, but I know he sucks as a human being. But I always think of, like, beautiful boy, the beautiful beautiful
I have no idea what this is.
I'm gonna send it to you just so you understand.
I think I'm okay.
No, I'll send it to you.
Please don't. Another scene that I don't have too much notes on, but we have to bring up is the nightmare scenes. And that's KNIGHT. I have no idea why it's spelled that way, honestly. I just remember that they called it nightmare and I just like went with it. Yeah, but no, it's canonically referenced as the nightmare.
Yeah, because it's Batman.
No.
He's a knight.
No. I understand that. I just mean, when did this happen? Because they never say that. They never reference that in the movies. How is it that we all just like collectively understood it as the nightmare sequence? Like I have no idea how this came into fruition. Anyways, it's a kick-ass part of the movie. I fucking love it. I love when Superman's soldiers are lined up on the wall and then like they kneel down and then boom, Superman lands. I just think it's so dramatic. Obviously he's like dictator Superman at that point, but I just think the imagery is really cool. Looks awesome.
Yeah. I feel like it's another one of those situations, once again, I'm repeating myself, but with the Batman versus Superman situation where I don't like it. I don't like the concept of Superman becoming a military symbol. I don't like the fact that he seems like he accepts it. It bothers me. But at the same time, I trust Zack Snyder and the writers that they probably have a reason for all of this. It's not how I felt like before with the other movie, where I was like, no, that's stupid. But I'm like, oh no, there's probably a smart reason. There's probably going to be an explanation. I understand. It just bothers me right now because we won't have that anymore. I will not get that explanation.
Interesting. That is so interesting. I was gonna say, I mean, I was gonna ask you, should I talk about it here or in the next episode with Zack Snyder's Justice League, or like not at all? But it's interesting because you didn't pick up on it at all.
What?
Interesting. I don't know if I should say it.
No, you have to say it now. I'm confused.
Since Man of Steel, they have been foreshadowing something. And it's not really a spoiler if you are looking for what they are foreshadowing. But they basically, it's one of those stories where, what's that thing that they do, like in Percy Jackson? Not a premonition, but like a, what is it?
Prophecy?
What's the word? Prophecy, yes. It's one of those movies where it starts out with a prophecy, and the point of it is how they're going to avoid it. So we actually know why Superman is that way in the nightmare. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that happens in Justice League, it's said.
Yes, but then why do you still not know?
Because the Flash? What?
What?
What do I not fucking know?
You don't know. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this. Maybe you do know and we're just having
Yes, that's the thing. I have
now.
a feeling you're just being vague about something. And I
don't want to say it if you don't know it.
Oh, Elia, how else am I going to find out if you don't tell me?
I don't know, maybe...
Is there going to be another movie that tells me?
They do another movie, I don't know.
Elia!
I am going to preface by saying that I'm going to spoil what is supposed to happen throughout the 5 movies, and if you don't want to hear it, just skip ahead a bit. But basically, at some point in the future, Darkseid obtains the anti-life equation, which completely eliminates free will. Darkseid kills Lois Lane, and in that moment of vulnerability and distraction, when Superman is mourning, which we see in Zack Snyder's Justice League, Darkseid is able to use the anti-life equation on Superman, hence why we see Superman fighting Batman and the rebels. He does not willingly become a dictator. He is under the control of Darkseid.
I understand the foreshadowing about the dictator part, but where does it show that it's not Superman?
It is Superman. He's just
I know, control. I mean, like, it's not him in his free will. Is that a foreshadow, or is that something a nerd knows?
A nerd?
Fucking nerd. No.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. It's there to me.
No, I'm asking a specific question.
I don't know.
Where are you seeing
this? I don't know how to
this?
step out of the perspective of a non-DC fan. I don't know how to answer this question.
Episode title option 2. Batman versus Superman. Elia's a nerd.
Okay, whatever. It's actually geek. Thank you very much. Historically, nerds were for people who were
geek. I'm sorry
into
for getting
academics.
The terminology
particularly
wrong.
with like programming, computer science. Geeks were people who played D&D and read comics.
Wait, also one more question.
Yeah.
So Batman is like an oracle?
An oracle?
Well, how does he see these future premonitions?
I don't remember.
I feel like he's an oracle. Like, how else does he see? Like, I know, like, the Flash appears momentarily in the movie, and it's like, it's Lois! Or whatever. What does he say?
Yeah.
But, like, how else does he have these dreams?
I can't remember if canonically... I don't remember what is supposed to happen. I will say that a version of the complete story is released, similar to what Peter Jackson did for Lord of the Rings. They set up a museum in whatever the capital is of Texas. I don't fucking remember. They set up a pop-up museum. And on these really big boards, it was like detailed story of what was supposed to happen in the 4th and 5th movies. I personally do not recommend reading it just because it's very much like it's very much in like the brainstorm process, obviously. If you choose to read it, you have to remember this is not a completed script. Like the main parts, how it concludes, I would assume would stay relatively in the same area in the finished script. But yeah, Zack kind of just like fucking released that to the public. Kind of reminds me of Peter Jackson because they wouldn't fucking greenlight Lord of the Rings, and you know, he kind of just released it, and then the people were like, oh, we want this movie, and then they allowed him to make the movie. But unfortunately, there is no news on any continuations, so I guess we're fucked.
I think it's interesting that everything Superman is being criticized about is kind of what he's looking into about Batman, like obviously at a much smaller city scale instead of world scaled. It's not being funded by Lex, obviously, so all the criticism against Batman goes washed away, and he's the only one pursuing it, really. Like, also, you could see how the Daily Planet ignores what Batman is doing because it's Gotham, or how the Gotham cops ignore him out of fear, or they don't really want to do anything about him because he's capturing baddies, so it doesn't matter. So I think pursuing the case on Batman is more personal for him, especially since he got to meet a wife of one of the men he got killed with the branding, I think. Was that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it becomes more personal because just as... What's her name? The woman who criticized Superman was paid
Ziri?
Just as she criticized Superman publicly, this woman didn't have the chance to criticize Batman because nobody was listening to her. So I think it became more personal for him. Like, he took what Ziri was saying seriously. Like, it affected him and how he was thinking and he was considering. He changed his viewpoint a little when he questioned his boss at the Daily Planet, as you said earlier. So seeing somebody on a smaller scale go what he's going through made it more personal.
Superman could very easily beat up Batman, kill him, force him into custody, blackmail him. He could literally do whatever he wanted to force Batman out of vigilantism, but he chose to ask Bruce to stop. I think it's really interesting how people are always like, you know, in Zack Snyder's Justice League, when Martha sells the farmhouse, people are like, well, he's Superman. He should just ask the bank to not make her sell her house and like make her out of debt. He's Superman. Why can't he just force Bruce to stop? He has the power to, but it's like, I think you're missing the point. There's consequences, and Superman isn't doing what he does for any sort of benefits or personal gains, which is sort of trailing off of what I originally wanted to say, but how they wrote this scene, this confrontation, it really just fits his character. The court hearing.
I hate this.
Like,
when I was writing my notes about this scene, my first 3 bullet points are angry, so many tears. Ugh. This scene frustrates me to my core. Superman is being used as a pawn, and the fact that he's not human, society is turning against him, and it's just like, I'm so sad. It makes me too sad. I fucking hate Lex Luthor. I hate his guts. Well, good villain, but I hate his guts because of this scene specifically, mostly. Because Superman went, with all intents and purposes, trying to show another, like another olive branch situation where he's like, I'm trusting you guys, and I hope you guys see, like, I could literally kill all of you in seconds, but I'm not, because I want to participate as a human. And he turned his powers so down, like, off completely, that he didn't realize that the danger that they were all in. And it was just so frustrating because he feels so much guilt because of that.
Yeah, it's literally another instance where it's going to be perceived as Superman choosing not to help people, and now he's going to be blamed for it.
Instead of seeing, like, wow, this person was literally, like, he was submitting to our system of how we do things and being willing to participate. And now everybody's seeing him like, well, Superman chose not to save them. Let's go get our pitchforks.
Yeah, they even accused him of being part of it.
Yeah.
Which was really fucked. Lex. So
Lex.
Fucking great. He is just so well written. The terrorist attack on the federal building, it was just like so unexpected for me as an audience member. And the way that Lex was able to put the blame on Superman to make not just the public hate him, but for Batman specifically, by intercepting Wallace's crisis financial support funds for victims of the Kryptonian invasion, and sending them back to Bruce with these really extreme, written in red, angry notes, which, by the way, also tells the audience how Bruce Wayne does do something to help poor people, because that is a constant criticism that people have about Batman. But yes, he does, in fact, use his money to help people, which is besides the point. But I just think it's really interesting us seeing how involved Lex is with this situation, this manipulation that he has. We literally see him choosing Wallace, and maybe Wallace isn't the only person that he's done this to, but intercepting his crisis funds and sort of grooming him to become this angry person towards Superman, and then pushing him to be a pawn in this game, in his plan, in which he makes Wallace bring a bomb into a fucking federal court. He's so
genius.
He's so good. Like, what other villain?
No one.
And then Lex kidnaps Lois to force Superman to appear, which is such a smart idea. Good for him. So many good lines in this scene.
Yeah,
I absolutely love this confrontation.
I don't remember the lines, but you should tell me.
You don't? That's okay. I wrote them down.
I knew you did.
I wrote them down, but I honestly know them. Like,
I can tell.
I know them so well.
You don't have to convince me.
So there's a line where he says, if God is all powerful, he cannot be all good. And if he is all good, he cannot be all powerful.
Oh, yes!
And neither can you be. Oh my god. Such a good fucking line, dude. And then my absolute favorite, and when he says this, I'm like, oh, what a fucking line, dude. I want to use it for like a playlist. I wish I had this energy. It's so good. I mean, no, I'm not saying I want to be Lex Luthor, but just like the energy.
You want to be Lex Luthor. Let it be known. Let it be known.
Sure, if it means I can be a billionaire.
Disgusting. I would literally kill you.
I could be a Bruce Wayne.
You should never have that amount of money, Elia.
Yeah, you should never have that amount of money. It's like a seriousness. Never. Anyway, the line is, and now God bends to my will. Oh my god! Such a good line.
Okay, I understand what you mean why you want the energy of that.
Oh, fuck you.
Oh, fuck that's you. A good line right there.
You were just on my ass about
because you mentioned yourself, you're like, I don't want to be Lex Luthor, but I understand the energy of the line compared to the energy of Lex Luthor. Like, I know what you mean. You mean it like in a fantasy setting. I'm like, oh, gods bow down
it
to
reminds me of that one. Reminds me of the lyric, "You're a god, but I make you weak." Oh, what a line!
Every time I see it on your playlist, I'm like,
yeah, I think it's my Superbat playlist name, right?
really? Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, I think it is actually. That's really funny.
Beautiful. Sorry, that was really loud. I apologize. I just got really excited.
What a line, dude. Oh my god. I think it's really funny. Just like...
What's funny?
I think it's really funny when Batman, like, uses kryptonite on Superman, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got this." And then when it starts to wear off, and then just the fear in Batman's eyes is just so funny.
Yes.
It's just hilarious.
I think it's hilarious that anybody thinks they have a fighting chance against Superman. Like, without being an alien, of course. Like, these little humans are like, yes, I could bring him down.
Okay, so we're gonna focus on the Martha scene right now. Yeah, I honest to God didn't understand the scene in 2016. I was not very knowledgeable on PTSD and trigger words, and like I just couldn't connect the dots even though they were there. And it's frustrating because now I understand that it's a trigger for his trauma. It reminds him of his parents dying, and also Martha is also like the last word that his father says. It's a lot for him, and I totally understand that. And just seeing the public reaction to this part of the movie reminds me of how people don't see the validity of trigger words, and that's just really frustrating.
Yeah. Like, Batman was already angry before, but like, and in an aggressive mode, but you could see the switch once he hears the word Martha. His brain is going through something he completely like might not understand at the moment, and it took Lois arriving and being like, "Oh, it's his mother," like to snap him out of it, because he was just like, "How do you know her name?" Like, he was just so focused in on his parents. That must have been really difficult for him, but it also helps him realize that Superman is as human as he is, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a layered scene. How this scene plays out, it's like, it's earned. There is enough context clues throughout the movie. Bruce is plagued with nightmares in his trauma from beginning to end. We see him having nightmares about his parents' death. It's constantly referenced in part of his life. These are context clues that validate Bruce being triggered by hearing the name Martha. And even further than that is Bruce coming to the realization that his own prejudices have led him to become the very person who rips apart families, the type of person that Batman fights every night. And as you said, it also shows him that Superman is not just an alien. He's not a god. He is a person with a family, and that Bruce is trying to rip that from him.
Yeah.
It's so layered because Martha is a trigger for him, for his own trauma, and then him realizing that he is committing that trauma onto
to somebody else.
It's, I mean, like, wow, you know?
The thing is that most people, I think including Batman himself, only know Superman, obviously. They don't know Clark Kent. And what I think is really funny is that Lex Luthor knows Clark Kent, and he never has that moment of realization that Batman has.
Bruce was just removed from the fact that this was an actual person.
Yeah.
Lex just chooses to think that his existence is wrong.
Yeah, basically.
It needs to be gone. Look, I know that it could be reduced to a silly, oh, they both have mothers whose names are Martha. But, like, they didn't choose their names, you know? Like, no. Zack Snyder and Chris Terrio didn't choose to make them both named Martha. This is something that was created, like, back in the 40s or whatever, whenever Batman and Superman were created. And this was, like, already part of the lore. They were just utilizing it in a way that benefits the movie.
Here's the thing. Although Batman may have not had a pause, I still think that that impact of him saying a name and then Lois arriving and saying that's his mother, it would have still had the same effect. I think maybe not as strongly because it's not his own mother's name, but it still would have had that humanizing aspect, I think. So that criticism is bullshit.
Any thoughts on Doomsday, Death of Superman?
The fact that I fucking sobbed my eyes out? No. Okay, here's the thing. Once I start getting emotional in a scene, my brain stops and I just start crying. So for this scene, all I could feel is intense sadness at his death, because even after all the questioning, after everything humans put him through, he still was willing to sacrifice his life for them. And I'm just like, fucking hell. You are the best human to ever exist. I love you. I love you. Yes, Superman.
Zack had pointed out they had chosen a spear specifically for religious imagery because, if you don't know, during the crucifixion of Christ, he was, like, speared.
Are you telling me if I didn't know?
No.
Oh.
No. I know you know, but I'm talking to the audience. I'm talking to the audience, buddy. I'm not going to make the assumption that everybody knows this.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting because I hadn't even thought about their choice of weaponry.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was just interesting because his sacrifice as a whole, like Superman's sacrifice as a whole, is following a lot of like Christian imagery itself.
Yeah,
and
it
then
was.
on top of that, layering that with the spear.
Like even the lowering of his body where Jesus is lowered down from the cross into his mother's arms. In his wrappings too, I think. So being wrapped in the cape was also... And there was a cross in the background, wasn't there?
Was there a cross in the background?
Somewhere there was a cross in the background. I'm pretty sure. I have that in my head.
It might have been just like...
a symbol of a cross with debris.
It might have been there. I might have not seen it though. Yeah, I love the religious imagery.
It's really pretty. I love Christian imagery. I don't love in my life. Yeah.
Yeah. As a marginalized person, as someone whose people were
colonized and killed.
We don't like that. But I mean, also another religious imagery. And it's not just Christian, because I think this is true to a lot of religions and just a lot of stories in general. But Superman's arc overall in these 5 movies is birth, death, and rebirth. Or reborn. I don't know what the word is.
Resurrection,
that's the word, yes. And then just, to fuel my Superbat love, of course, they added Batman's promise at the end of BVS, which is so great. From BVS to Zack Snyder's Justice League. Great character development. He goes from someone who has lost faith, that there are good people in the world. Mm-hmm. He let the loss of hope and brutality consume him to the point where he began taking extreme methods of punishment with criminals, like branding that sex trafficker. Yeah. And by the end of the movie, he is influenced by Superman and regains hope. Batman seeing the wrongs in, like, seeing the flaws in himself and, like, changing. It's so good. It's so good. And then he says, I failed him in life. I won't fail him in death. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. It's great content. It's also important to point out that even Diana had lost hope.
Oh yeah.
In people. This iteration of Superman, how they express hope, and I think we talked about this in the previous episode, but how they express hope isn't necessarily like him as an individual, but how he influences and inspires hope through others, and how he just like inspires them to have hope. And then like the last shot where it says, if you seek his monument, look around you.
Yes!
Literally,
the world is
sums up what I was trying to say.
The people alive and walking around are his monument. Everybody. Oh!
And the hope that he has inspired in others. I mean, like, he is the symbol of hope.
He's the reason the Justice League assembled. Like, I'm so proud of him. Like, and I hate that he had to go through all that just to get that level of appreciation and hope.
Literally, it took him dying for them to be like, sorry.
And just as Superman died, the conversation about this movie has died too, so we will be moving on.
God. Actually, that's a great segue.
Oh, okay. Who do you think should watch this movie, Elia?
In my opinion, anyone who is interested in political movies, or anyone who wants a different perspective of comic book movies in comparison to what's currently popularized. This is a movie that explores xenophobia, responsibility, and power in our current reality. And I think that's really interesting. I would also recommend that you watch this when you can really focus on the movie. No distractions by side conversations or by your phone. This is a movie that you need absolute focus on.
I would recommend this if you like Watchmen or The Boys, specifically that type of audience.
Oh, hey, actually, before we end, this could have been the cold open. I'm so stupid. Hey, listener. Did you know that Rhea and I are now housemates? Rhea lives in my basement of San Francisco.
I live in
a basement.
What is considered hell, and Elia lives in heaven. You know what I think is funny? We're in the same household, but we're not recording in the same room.
Yeah, I don't want to see your face.
We're literally on a FaceTime call with our cameras turned off, even though I could hear their voice upstairs lagging by 0.5 seconds, and I could hear when they laugh. And even if it would make this a whole lot easier by bouncing conversation if we were in person, we still recording it in our rooms.
Yeah, I literally don't want to see your face. Ever.
Fuck you.
In fact, I actively avoid you, and I live my room is right next to
They say they actively avoid me, but they come knocking on my room so much.
Yeah, I do. But no, just for the record, I don't want people to know that we're using FaceTime. We use Discord.
We were on Discord.
Okay. We were on Discord, but then we have internet issues.
Oh yeah, it wasn't because we chose to do FaceTime. It was a struggle.
We're a cool people.
We use Discord.
Cool kids.
Don't you see our status on Discord? It says we're recording. Thank you for listening to Labyrinth of the Bizarre. You can listen to Labyrinth anywhere you listen to podcasts. You could also watch Batman v Superman on HBO Max, the ultimate version. Please watch that one. Or you could just purchase the DVD somewhere. You can send us listener mail at goldenlyres@gmail.com. That's golden, LYRES. Or send us a message on Twitter at labyrinthpod. Follow us on there for updates and behind-the-scenes content. Show your support for our podcast by rating us on Apple Podcasts and sharing us on social media with your friends. It really helps us out, and we like talking to you on social media. Labyrinth of the Bizarre recognize that we live and work on stolen land. Elia and Rhea now record in the same area of California, specifically the territory of the Ramaytush. Thank you for listening to Labyrinth of the Bizarre. Until next time.
Bye, Rhea.
Cue music. Bye. I'm gonna go bother you later. Bye.
Don't bother me. I'm playing Apex Legends.
I am.